Hey guys, we got 3 logos here. Let's get down to it. Firstly, let's grab a line tool and we'll throw a straight line down. That's all we need. Let's click on the rotate tool, hold down Alt and click on the anchor point. That will use that as the middle point to rotate this symbol around. So now we need an angle divisible by 360 so that it perfectly finishes up at the top. 20, perfect. So now we're going to click on copy. What copy will do is keep an original version of the shape and continue to let it bounce around. I'm going to change the color of this to black so you can see what I'm doing. If you select the second shape that just spawned, you can hold Control, press D, and you'll continue doing the same action over and over again. Just do that until it's a complete 360. Now we have this awesome space effect. What we're going to do is we're going to make a circle in the middle of all this. Just find the center point, hold down Alt, and when you click and drag out, hold Shift as well to constrain the proportions, you can make this perfect circle. So we'll drop it about halfway, and we'll turn that into white just for visual, just make it easier for me. And what we'll do, I'm holding Control Shift and a left bracket, and we're going to send it to back. That, once again, just for visual things. Now I'm selecting everything, so I'm going to cut around the middle. So this shape builder tool at the side is going to be perfect for this. Going to hold down Alt, and we're going to drag around all these empty shapes. Boom. All gone. Perfect. So now we're going to create another circle. Find this center point. Do the same thing, but make it slightly larger. And what that's going to do, and we're going to select every second line. Going around. And we'll grab that shape builder tool again. We'll hold down Alt and we'll get rid of the inside of all of these. And what you'll see is that did absolutely sweet FA. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try that again. Find middle point, middle point, middle point. Yep, it's good. Drop it around. Wonder why that didn't work. Let's select everything, but just shape builder tool every second one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. And we can delete out this circle now. We no longer have any use for it. So we've got this cool space effect now. Let's increase the stroke size to make it a bit thicker, make it a bit easier to see. And then in the stroke menu on the right hand side, we're going to change the cap to rounded. And what that's going to do is going to give it that cartoon look straight away. It makes it look so much easier on the eyes. Now, I don't like to work with shapes. Shapes get distorted when you move them inside. So I'm going to grab all of these, click on Object, and click on Expand. Untick Fill, we just want to expand the stroke. And that's turned them all into shapes. So they're not as editable anymore. But they can be nice and big and nice and small, and they don't change their width, which is great. So I've got some colors that we're going to throw these to apply these to. Let's select all these large ones to begin with. And we're going to go find this purple I've got, and we've got the hex code here. 2B00. That's going to get a nice beautiful purple in there, nice mauve. And we'll grab the green for the other ones. We'll grab the remaining. You know what? This will be easier. If you've got one object and you want to grab a lot of them, magic wand. That didn't work. Never mind. Okay, cool. It's usually only meant to select the same color as that. So it's meant to select all black shapes, but that didn't work. So we'll pretend that didn't happen. We'll go green, so 23E, 55E. And that shape is a beautiful green. Look at that. She sparkles. All right, we've got that done. It's a little bit too large, so we're going to make it a little bit smaller. Just so I can fit text in underneath, we're going to make a text box. We'll set it to the right-hand side. Now, I've decided to use Typekit Fonts because every Adobe CC subscription has access to Typekit. If you haven't used Typekit, please get it now. It is free fonts that you can sync to any of your devices. It's by far the best offering Adobe has for this. It hasn't got the most fonts, but the selection there is great, and it's got amazing things like Proxima Nova, which is a huge fan favorite and fits in everything. So we're going to use Proxima Nova. Sounds good. And we'll increase this size because it looks a little bit small. And we've got the name. Let me just go back to the other one. Bright Idea. So we have Bright Idea. Now we really want to bold this idea. So we're going to throw this from regular to extra bold. And we're going to turn Bright Idea just a little bit thicker than what it currently is. We'll go medium. Move it a little bit closer, make it a little bit bigger, make it in proportion to the actual, the logo size here. And what I'm going to do is just going to rotate this shape just so that the line runs along the same axes and the same direction as Bright Idea. And that'll just, constantly our eyes are making patterns, and it's good to when people look at something and they're like, oh, that just works. That's because your eyes have made a pattern. So it's very good to have that. Usually I'm much more precise in what I'm doing, but for the sake of this tutorial, we'll just leave it like that. Now, if black text looks good for you, that's fine. You can keep it like that. But what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to make it all purple. And so there you go. For our first one, we can even throw in a nice tagline. Let's go Think Smart. I'm pretty sure someone's already used that. Doesn't matter. And we'll make it much smaller. We'll go size 15. We'll right align it. That didn't work, but we'll throw it to the side here. Align it up to the A. And we might make it a lighter grey, just so it doesn't pull attention away from Bright Idea. Okay, there you go. So that's your first logo done. Boom! Let's go logo 2, hey? Logo 2 is this creative service. We're going to grab that. This uses the blend tool to make this shape. I didn't stand there and draw it all myself. So what I'll do is we've got, in CC, you've got this pointer here, which is the Curvature Tool. It's much like the pen tool, but it makes precise curves, and I'm terrible at making precise curves, so this tool is great for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a shape that follows this general L shape. And I'm going to let it weave back and forth and down to the bottom there. I'm going to finish that up. And I'm going to grab the tool again. I'm going to grab the second time, but I'm going to run around the opposite side of the path that it's traveling. And you'll see why once this is done. I might actually get this to come in pretty close at the end here, just to make sure that it works properly. And we'll select both lines and we'll get rid of the white fill. No need for the white fill. Let's grab the blend tool. This is the tool that's going to make all the magic work. And we're going to select the first anchor point of each of the shapes. It's going to make a measly line in there. It looks nothing like we want. We're going to double click on the blend tool. Change it, the spacing to specified steps. We'll click on preview just so you can see how it works when we move it up, and I'll go up by one iteration every time. You can already see this cool patterns emerging. Sans a few mistakes in there, but we'll go, for the sake of this, we'll go about 12. Now I did a rough shape to start off with, so we're going to go in and we're going to correct our shape. See around here it's made all this mess, and down here it doesn't look very nice either. So if we double click into the shape, you'll see here that it's gone into the blend itself. So we'll select this first point and we'll line it up to the end so it doesn't make that schoolgirl piggy tail sitting up at the end. And that's already made this perfect shape to begin with. Now this is going to require a bit more editing. We're just grabbing these anchor points around here and just moving them around. Illustrator hasn't found, there we go. Illustrator hasn't found a perfect line for it yet, and that's why that's happening. The angle isn't perfect. Now this isn't the Curvature Tool's problem. This is my problem. I haven't done this correctly. We'll let that come back down. We'll let it finish like that, and we'll angle this a little bit higher. I'll have to do an anchor point tutorial a little bit later. Now this shape is a little bit different to this initial shape that I've created, but doesn't matter. We'll get the same effect running at the end. So now we have this shape here. I'm going to actually make the stroke a little bit smaller. You can see if you only make one side, it goes from thick to thin, which is pretty cool. But for the sake of this, got to make both of these 0.5. And we get this really cool shape. Now, once we've finished editing this shape, we're going to click on Object, Blend, Expand. And that's going to turn it all into individual lines. So we can move all these individual lines. We can edit these however we want. The blend's now finished. I'm just going to Control Z that. So now let's get some color around it. I'll expand it again because you know I hate strokes. So Object, Expand, just the stroke, click OK. From here we're going to go from orange to a lighter orange. This is going to make like I'm going to Control Z a bunch of this actually. I've made the blend too early. Here we go. Cut. So now we have this blend here, much better with a thinner stroke. So we are going to change the color of this so that it's going to make this really creative, passionate, fiery orange to yellow, right? To suit our creativity brand, our logo that we're making there. So we're going to grab the first shape and we're going to turn it into a nice bright yellow, bright orange, this first one. And that's made it transfer to red, to black, sorry. You don't want to keep it as two distant colors because gradients won't work like that. It has to be a real subtle change. The reason why orange to yellow works, not just because it's similar in color, but because we're used to seeing this in nature and fire and things like that. So let's change that from that to that. Now that is a little bit too pastel, that yellow. Let's bring that down a little bit, or even bring a tiny bit more yellow, orange into it. Cool. So there's our shape there. We now have that shape. We know how I no longer like to work in strokes, so we're going to expand this blend. So Object, Blend, once you finish dealing with it, press Expand. That's going to turn it all into individual shapes. From there, we're going to go Object, Expand, and we're going to just choose Stroke like we usually do, and it's going to turn it all into individual shapes, just so we can rescale it, resize it, and there's no issue there. Now the choice of font I've used here is Proxima Nova, just so I can show you guys, not playing favorites, just so I can show you guys how one font can make so many different styles. So you don't have to worry about using too many too often. So let's make this extra bold. We'll increase the size a little bit and we'll type in Creative. The extra space that we're going to give this, so I want you to hold down Alt and press right, and it's going to give it a bunch of space. And we're going to make these space nice and wide. And what that does is it gives it a really prestigious feel, like every letter is individually important. And we're going to throw that down. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. So we've got this word creative here, right? Underneath it, we're going to Alt drag, and what that's going to do is make another version of it. And we're going to type in service, because that was the second word that we're using. To show a bit of difference between the two, we're going to change it to regular, maybe even thin for this, make it light. And we're going to change both of these colors to a darker gray. Now in most of my, the third point, let's grab this and put a little line underneath it. And what we'll use this line is to create a 3-tier even space. Which will just line our logo and kind of gives it this triangle shape from top to bottom. And like I said, with your eye making patterns, kind of leads the reader down the page, which is great. So we're moving that down. We've got everything pretty much centered. Now you can leave it here. Now why I'd like to leave it here is because logo elements behind text can cause heaps of issues if you're a print designer, if you're a print brander, because it's with RGB, everything's subtractive, it's fine. Using it for web, it's going to be fine. But as soon as we put this onto a business card, and it's going to print out all the colors underneath, and it's going to print this on top, it could cause trapping issues, it could cause print errors, and it might just look super muddy. And it's not something that we want. But for the sake of this, I'm going to pop it on the top because it looks cool. It looks cool. So I'm going to change the direction of this just so that it really flows through the middle of it. Let's get that a little bit centered. You can even, if you really want to, you can right click these and create outlines. I'm just trying to get the individual T, ungroup, maybe even send some of these to back, you know, kind of make it look like there are some icons behind, some in front. And now it kind of looks like it's jumping back and forth. For readability, maybe not the best, but it's just another tool in your asset as a designer. So there you go. There's our second logo sitting right there. Looks a little bit different to this initial one here, but same premise, same premise. Now our third one, we are going to make the Music Lab's brain. It looks like an amplifier, looks like the EQ symbols, as well as a brain. This one uses the Pathfinder Tool. Super happy to show you this. Let's get into it. So what you're going to start off with is you're going to start off with a rectangle. You're going to make a simple rectangle shape, and before you let go, keep pressing up. Don't keep pressing up, that isn't going to work. Alright, we'll do this another way. We need to round the corners. So you've got these four little lines, little white circles in between. They're going to click on that, and you're going to hold down. And that's going to round the hell out of the corners, which we want. We want a perfect round. We don't want any angles in there. Now, because I don't like working with strokes, I've told you this so many times, I'm going to turn that into a fill. We're going to drag this across, holding Alt and Shift so that it stays the same. And once we let go, we're going to hold Control and press, or Command if Mac, and press D. We want 5 different shapes. Now, usually to grow them bigger and smaller, you'd use the selection tool. But when you use rounded edges and you make things bigger and smaller, it changes the angle that you've rounded it at. So if you make it nice and small, it no longer holds its shape. So instead of that, we're going to grab the white direct selection tool, and we're going to grab them by the anchor points and yank them up and down that way. So we'll make this a little smaller. Make this guy a tiny bit smaller. This guy's the biggest bit of the brain. He's the middle of the brain of the oblongata. Make this guy a little bit smaller still. You want to make a bit varied. And then get right to the end and make this the smallest of them all. Now you got the basis of our brain, but we need those connector points in between. So to make these connector points, we're going to zoom in. We're going to zoom the hell in. And we're going to use the ellipse tool. Now we're going to make an ellipses from one point, 1/2, and we're going to make sure that it hits the other path as well. Right, so there's no gaps in between any of that. We're going to hold down Alt, and we're going to drag, and we're going to make another of these circles. Now we're going to select all 4 shapes around it, and we're going to use this Pathfinder tool, this shape builder tool, and we're going to click in the middle here to make this middle shape. Hold down Alt and get rid of the circles. Click to get rid of the circles. We now have our connector. Now let's make that by 5. Rather than doing it again, we'll grab the same shape and we'll drag it across. These guides are perfect in CC. They'll do everything for you. Now that's a little bit samey, so let's give everything like a music vibe, but we're going to move everything up and down. You can't move it too far up because it won't connect, so we'll leave that one down here. So now we have these 5 shapes, and we've got the brain. The brain looks great. We're going to use a bit more of a techno font here to kind of tie the technical aspects with the music and the sound production and everything like that. We've got a great font. It's a Typekit font called Univar Pro. And we'll go Ultra. We want this to be nice and thick. I'll type in Music Labs. Now there's a new phase. Oh, actually this would be good. We'll make this a little bit bigger. We'll give it a font size of about 30. And we will go type, change case, and we'll go lowercase. Don't want to retype it. Nobody wants to retype everything, so let's just do that. Heaps easier. Okay, so we have this black and white version of the logo. We're going to give it a nice bright hypercolor to really make it pop. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all these, and we'll go 29 D 9C2. Boom! Look at that. That's a hypercolor. This black is a little bit too contrasting, and a big UI UX movement has made a lot of blacks you'll see on web pages are now greys or lighter greys because it's easier on the eyes. Unless you're trying to give a definite impression, it's good to use a slightly lighter grey. There you go. It kind of just diffuses the logo a little bit. Now this is good enough for a logo right here. This is beautiful flat design right here. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a little shadow behind it just to give the brain a tiny bit of depth, but not like a drop shadow. This is just going to be a very tasteful shadow. It's going to sit very close to it. The way I've done that is select it all, hold down Alt, and drag it. I've held down Shift so that it stays on the 45-degree angle, so everything looks isometric. So before we deselect anything, we're going to change the color of this, and this is going to be D3, D3, D3. That's going to be a super light grey. You're not going to see it very well, and that's the idea. We're going to move that to the back using Command or Control Shift and the left bracket. So there we go. That is our Music Labs logo. So these are the final 3 logos you got. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Subscribe, and I will see you next time. Enjoy your week.